A former Delta Energy manager, we're back in New Zealand now, whose public expression of safety concerns led to WorkSafe auditing power lines, says the company hasn't fully delivered on maintenance. Richard Healy left his job with Delta in 2016 after raising concerns about neglected power lines in Otago. 2 days after resigning, he went to WorkSafe with his concerns. 2 years on, he says Aurora Energy, the company which contracts Delta to maintain the lines, both owned by Dunedin City Council, still has untold power poles that put the public in danger. That's his claim. The past few days, he's highlighted in videos the rot in one of Aurora Energy's poles, loaded with high voltage assets in Green Island and Dunedin, near a primary school and his local pub. He says despite work done and money spent, not enough has changed.
It's pretty much gone backwards. Hard to believe, considering the vast amount of money that this has cost the people of Dunedin and Central Otago. But yeah, backwards is the only way I can describe it.
In what way?
Well, John, initially I was quite naive when I went to WorkSafe and later complained about this. And I thought, like most people would tend to do, that we have government agencies that are out there to protect us from, rogue players and just incompetent people and, bad outcomes. But it turns out that actually those government bodies aren't very good at the job. And so what's happened with Aurora is they've spent an awful lot of money, but they've targeted the wrong things, and some of the most dangerous assets have been left to simply erode away.
Literally, in the case of some stuff that you posted on Facebook, right?
Yeah, literally. So in those posts I pointed out some poles which had been replaced. Now, you'd wonder how this happens, but they were poles that didn't need to be replaced. And I pointed out one very dangerous pole right next to my local cafe, my local pub and my local primary school, which hasn't been replaced and is in a very dangerous condition.
Tell me about the wires that pole holds up.
So that pole is holding up a high voltage circuit, so that's very dangerous. So to put that in layman's terms, if you think about sticking your finger in a light socket, well, this is 25 times worse. So 25 times more grunt in that circuit up on top. Then below that there's low voltage wires. It's the same wires that feed your house. So that's the sort of danger that you're talking about if you touch an installation in your own home. On top, the very top of the switch, there's a high voltage cable and a high voltage switch. So quite an important network infrastructure. So quite a busy pole.
Richard, we're screening the footage of what you did, but for people who are listening on the radio, can you describe what you were able to do with that pole?
Yeah, so I've watched that pole over a number of years, and it's on a decent lean, and it's very, very obvious. It's in a very steep bank, and it's very, very obvious to anyone with any industry knowledge that the foundation strength isn't good on that pole. So I got sick of looking at it. Every day I pass it on my way to the cafe. So the other day I stopped and decided to examine it a bit more closely, and I pulled my screwdriver out of my car, and I found that I could push a 7-inch screwdriver as deep as I liked into that pole from a number of different directions. Since then, I went back I borrowed a fish slice from my favourite cafe, went back to the pole and found that I could actually push it clean through the pole. So probably a reasonable indication it's not in great nick.
Right, and what has been the response to you posting this on Facebook?
Well, this morning by 9 o'clock, I went out to have a look at the pole again. We actually have a cup of coffee and walk past the pole. And there are 2 marks on the footpath for new pole positions. So with a bit of luck, we're going to see that pole replaced very quickly. And I sort of don't attribute that to what I've done, although I might have kicked it off. I attribute that to the 300 very angry mothers of the children at the school next door who clearly, from the Facebook response, made Aurora very aware of their views on the topic.
What needs to happen to make sure that there are no unsafe poles left?
Look, one of the problems here, John, is that there are a number of government agencies involved and none of them are quite sure what their role is. WorkSafe have a role, Energy Safety Service have a role, Electricity Authority have a role, the Commerce Commission have a role. Not only does that mean that the efforts to fix this are rather confused, but it also means that if someone falls down on the job, they've got plenty of other people they can point the finger at and say it was actually them who failed and not their own group. So pretty much what needs to happen is one agency needs to take the lead on this, and instead of just looking for a number of poles to be replaced, they need to have enough people, competent people on the ground, to ensure that the poles that are replaced are the dangerous ones that present the risk. But that just hasn't happened.
Richard, that pole opposite your local pub beside the primary school that you walked past on the way to the cafe, which you were able to, and for people who are listening, I've absolutely seen the footage, you were easily able to jam a screwdriver into it. No issues at all, right up to the handle, and in fact, probably if you'd given it a good kick, the handle would have gone in as well. What would happen if that had gone down?
It would have been pretty catastrophic, John. That's a reasonably busy main arterial road, and the pole would have fallen across the road. As well as the pole falling across the road, there would have been two spans of low tension falling across the road, so live wires everywhere. On top of the pole is high tension. That's a really dangerous bit of equipment, and that would have been on the ground as well. So for people in the immediate area, there's the obvious risk of the falling objects, the risk of electrocution, the risk of entanglement by vehicles backwards and forwards. It would have caused a pretty large outage, so there would have been several hundred people without power for several hours. The thing that really worries me is that is outside a damn primary school. So you and I might have the sense not to go near a downed wire. 5-, 6-year-old school kids, not quite so certain that that would have been a good outcome. So, it would have been a fairly catastrophic event.
Richard Healy talking us to earlier this afternoon. Paula Goodman, who's clearly seen the footage, has emailed in. The point is, John, the lines are holding the pole up, not the other way around. Disgusting. Aurora has this evening confirmed the Green Island power pole was inspected and tagged as hazardous back in June. It says the pole is scheduled for replacement in the next 2 weeks. We asked Aurora Energy to tell us exactly how many power poles it has in a similar state to that one in Green Island. In other words, how many power poles it has identified as hazardous. Its response is that an independent review will find out what information Aurora has on the state of its assets when it concludes later this year. As for WorkSafe, it says it's been engaging with Aurora for a number of years. It says Mr Healy's concerns should be addressed to Delta Aurora, as it's their responsibility under health and safety law to ensure that the poles do not pose a risk, not WorkSafe's.